On October 31st, 1999, an EgyptAir Boeing 767 was operating a scheduled intercontinental flight from Los Angeles to New York. There were 203 passengers and 14 crew members on board. The flight was proceeding normally. There were 2 crew shifts on board, allowing the pilots to take turns during the long flight. At 6:19 Greenwich Mean Time, EgyptAir Flight 990 took off from John F. Kennedy Airport in New York. The aircraft climbed to flight level 330. Everything appeared normal. There were no signs of trouble. At 6:50, the captain, El Habashi, left the cockpit to use the restroom. At that moment, the second pilot was in control of the aircraft and monitoring its parameters. 30 seconds after the captain left the cockpit, the replacement first officer, al-Battuti, quietly whispered, "Tawakkaltu ala Allah." The phrase means, "I put my trust in Allah." He repeated the phrase 7 times. Then just 3 seconds later, both engines were reduced to minimum power. The aircraft's elevators were pushed down, and the Boeing suddenly entered a steep nosedive. The aircraft entered a near-zero gravity condition. Despite the extreme descent, the captain managed to make his way back into the cockpit. Once in his seat, he asked, "What's going on?" But al-Battuti continued repeating, "I put my trust in Allah." The captain asked again, "What's this? Have you reduced the engine throttle?" He then ordered al-Battuti, "Pull for me." The aircraft began to climb, but the first officer continued pushing the control stick away from himself. The captain desperately tried to raise the aircraft using the controls, but because of the enormous aerodynamic forces, the aircraft began to break apart. Soon, both engines failed, and both flight recorders stopped recording. At 6:52 Greenwich Mean Time, after just 53 minutes of flight, EgyptAir Flight 990 crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, approximately 100 kilometers from Nantucket Island. Just seconds before the aircraft struck the water, the left engine separated from the aircraft because of the extreme aerodynamic forces. All 217 people on board were killed. Because the aircraft crashed in international waters, authorities in both Egypt and the United States became involved in the investigation. The entire world followed the investigation, waiting for answers. But investigators from Egypt and the United States reached very different conclusions. Egyptian authorities claimed that the disaster was caused by an aircraft malfunction and, according to the account, attempted to conceal information supporting another explanation. American investigators reached a very different conclusion. They believed that the crash was not accidental, but deliberate. Later, the investigation revealed disturbing information about the second pilot, al-Battuti. According to the investigation described in this account, he had experienced mental health problems and had displayed troubling behavior toward hotel employees, including signs of persecution mania. Then investigators discovered another important detail. The day before the crash, al-Battuti had an extremely unpleasant conversation with a fellow pilot. That pilot was also traveling on the fatal flight, but he was not working in the cockpit. He was traveling as a passenger. According to the account, the colleague threatened to expose al-Battuti immediately after they arrived in Cairo, and he told him that this flight would be al-Battuti's last.